those parts who found a way to feel a little bit more okay in the world by feeling like I'm helping, feeling like I'm, making the world a better place. These parts are trying to make the world a better enough place so there could be room for me in it.
Welcome to The One Inside. I'm your host, Tammy Sollenberger. I'm super excited to have 3 guests on the podcast today. So I'm going to do super brief bios because we have so much to talk about. So Elizabeth Parsons, Risa Adams, and Robin Beardsley, hopefully I said everyone's names correctly, are all physicians who love IFS and have come together to write an amazing book about the importance of self-care for everyone, radical self-care for everyone, especially physicians. And so welcome to the podcast, all 3 of you. Let's start where we always start, which is where you are in the world and what you see out your nearest window. And you all will have to pick who goes first.
So just a part wants to say it's Beardsley, like a man's beard.
Thank you. Okay.
So
Beardsley.
just
So this is Robin Beardsley. So you might have to say your name so
okay.
everyone kind of gets to know your voices. So Robin Beardsley.
Right.
Thanks, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. And as I look out my window, I have 2 windows. At the front, there's snow on both sides of me. My RV is put to sleep in the front window, and at the back, my trees and garden are all asleep for the
Beautiful.
winter.
And where are you in the world?
I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
I can jump in next. So it's Elizabeth Parsons here. And I'm also in Ottawa, like Robin. And I'm in my basement office nook. So when I look out my window, I'm actually kind of looking up. And so I can see also lots of snow. And the trees in my backyard are really tall spruce and a couple of cedars.
I love it. We're all seeing snow. I also see snow.
Mhm. It's the time of year.
Yes.
And I'm Risa Adams, and I also see snow or big melting icicles. We have an old home, so the insulation is a little suspect. Um, and I also, if I look this way, can see some big, beautiful trees and my kids' soccer net, not really being used right now, but a reminder of other seasons.
A lot of things have been put to sleep, like RVs and soccer nets. It's the season, right? For lots of things to go to sleep. So tell me about how the 3 of you met. Let's start there. Let's start with something super simple. How did the 3 of you meet?
Well, I think we could start from we were all in our level 1 together. That's not where it all necessarily began, but I think part of a neat story here in Canada, and I'm also in Canada, is that Robin was a big part of actually getting more IFS to Canada as a whole because she met Derek Scott at a conference for physicians. And afterwards, some version or my version is that said, "Hey, can you teach us this?" And he went on to teach many of us here in Canada and inspire us. So we all took his course, and then we all traipsed off to Austin, Texas, and somewhere in Florida to work with Chris Burris in our level 1. And we've had various other professional, all of us, different connections in the past and collaborations. But we really came together even more so and in a really deliberate and special way at the time of the pandemic. Um, when, as you know, most of us were forced inside in a different way, in an IFS way as well, at least speaking for myself. Here in Canada at the beginning of the pandemic, there were words like conscription back into hospitals for physicians going around. And that really, really roused parts in me in a distressing way. And one of the ways that really helped was to come together with Robin and Elizabeth and began a deliberate process of writing for our parts and from our parts and speaking of our parts and sharing them. And we got really inspired to, we're like, wow, this is really helpful. There's a lot of kind of medical parts kind of flying around that haven't really had a chance to land or connect or be heard. And so that was the beginning of our practice together, and which quickly evolved into we're like, this will be a book someday. There's just so much here. We're not the only ones feeling these things.
And Robin, you're shaking your head. Tell me about
Mhm.
your part of that story.
the part about being the fear of being called to do something that I hadn't done for a long time during the pandemic, like go back in the hospitals, run a code, and I hadn't been in hospitals for a long time. So there really was this fear that was there that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I would say in getting together and writing really felt like, oh, here's somebody else who also knows what this is like. And I would say the biggest thing for me is coming to terms with my fear in medicine, that I was never allowed to speak about it. And so that's what I'm resonating with right now as Risa's talking. And also gratitude for a reminder to of Derek and just he really wanted to bring this out more and how we got together there. So yeah.
And what about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, just listening, just to tie it back in with to Derek. I mean, I got into IFS because of Robin, and I didn't know kind of the backstory about her getting Derek to, start teaching it. And half of our group of 12 were physicians, I'm just remembering. So it's just kind of interesting
Mhm.
how that kind of comes back around. But yeah, I had a very similar feelings, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, feeling afraid that I might have to go back to work or do work that I wasn't even, prepared or ready to do. I'd been doing therapy for, 15 years at that point. So I didn't know what might happen. And also a sense of like, I remember how I was watching and reading news and it felt almost kind of compulsive and it felt really stressful. And I remember getting in touch with a part that really felt how important it was to witness what was happening to healthcare workers. And it's bringing up a lot of feeling right now, like that it felt so important. And so, yeah, this time that we had together just felt so supportive, in such a scary time.
Like, so what happens when Elizabeth says, like, what was happening to healthcare workers during the pandemic?
Yeah. I think I was feeling it because I had shortly just um, I had transitioned to psychotherapy in 2018, so I was very close to being there, kind of, I would say. I was primary care physician, so I knew a lot of my friends and just feeling what they were going through and that fear of not wanting to be there, but also really yeah, it was the first time that, I was experiencing what in my own system, what everybody else was experiencing in the world, I think, and, it was that wanting to be there for others, like, I burnt out, so wanting to be there so others wouldn't burn out, that really came much to the more to the forefront.
What about you, Risa?
What happens for me is feeling the little part inside me who, through this process, I realized had felt really scared through a lot of aspects of medical training and education. So those moments of being asked to do something or to know something, and feeling like you have no choice. When I think of the pandemic, and imagine for healthcare workers, because I also, the three of us, have been doing psychotherapy, you know, as our full practice, which is a thing in Ontario. Some of your listeners might be like, physicians doing psychotherapy, what? And none of us are psychiatrists. We're all family physicians by training. It's a thing in Ontario. We're really lucky and blessed here. So we're all in primary care and then at different stages of our career transitioned to psychotherapy. That sense of choice or not having a choice in parts who feel that way and then who feel trapped and who feel alone. We were talking just this morning. We met on Wednesday mornings as we still often do, and that was something that came up about what we love about getting together and what we wish for healthcare workers is to have more opportunities to get together and not feel alone. To remember it's not only you, and it's okay to have feelings and fear, like Robin said.
Okay, so that's the thing that I'm hearing you all say is there was this sense of aloneness that my guess is definitely was heightened during the pandemic, of course. But as physicians and psychotherapists, there is a sense of aloneness and a sense of fear that it felt like you were not allowed to talk about. So I'm wondering, Robin, can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you and how that is for physicians, maybe more so than the average Joe.
Um, so there's a polarization right away around what was helpful was to be able to handle that fear that was there in training. And how do you learn how to handle fear of uncertainty, which is a lot of what our job is. So there's that polarization of the training itself helped me to deal with that. But what I didn't know at the time and I'm more aware of now is how much I pushed aside the fear that I couldn't, that imposter, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. And um, there's just this strong polarization, and I can hold that more now, whereas before I didn't even know it was there. It was just like we don't even talk about it, or we know about it, and you might say something to somebody, my friends. Thank goodness I had lots of good friends, um, but it wasn't something you spoke necessarily openly. Definitely not in front of patients.
Yeah, yeah. Elizabeth, you're shaking your head. I'm just gonna keep doing it. It's like you're shaking your head in resonance. So tell me what's happening for you around this fear and like the secrecy of having that fear.
Well, I'm just listening to Robin, I'm aware of like the part that got me through medical training and even early in my career was like just pushing me to just keep going, just keep going. And then the parts that, yeah, kind of not always effectively, but kind of kept that anxiety from spilling out and from other people knowing it. And I was thinking earlier today about shame and how, we all have shame. We carry shame from past experiences and medical training. And I want to emphasize like it's the structure of it, not individuals per se, but that it's not a place where we can release that shame or have it witnessed, which is what really needs to happen. It's a place where more shame gets kind of piled on because there isn't that space made to share like if you make a mistake or you do something that causes harm, the impulse is to hide it and there isn't a lot of room. I think it is changing, but at the time that we trained, there really wasn't space to be open about those kind of things.
The three of you had a lot of similar experiences and found each other. And then I know this is oversimplifying it, but then you got together on Wednesdays and you started writing. So tell me about this. Tell me about the writing for your parts and in the group and what happened.
Yeah, so there's something, I think it's called Amherst Writers and Artists, and it's this beautiful invitation to anyone and everyone to say, "You are a writer. If you write, you're a writer." And so you start with prompts, and so we'd have a prompt like, "A real doctor, dot, dot, dot." And then you write just and you're supposed to just keep your pen or pencil or fingers tapping, continuously for however much time you say, usually about 10, 12 minutes. And you just go. And then there's an opportunity to read aloud any portion of it that you would like to each other. So to be heard and witnessed and for the people listening to then reflect anything they resonate with or that feels strong to them. And so we would do that. And we would also, being all trained IFS therapists, sometimes pause and take time and do like a session with each other if something came up really strongly. And give that part more time.
Robin, what came up for you? A real doctor what? Like what does your part say? A real doctor what?
Yeah, so a real doctor knows what they're doing, has all the answers, um, and is always there for others.
Wow. Okay. And you don't have to share this, but are there parts of you that's carried on from childhood in some way? Like that's what I'm supposed to do as a person, or just
Yes.
is there
Yeah.
something like that too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think as I started writing and opening up to what some of these things were, a lot of this is a legacy or cultural burden, I would say. So in my family, make the world a better place, always be there for somebody else. Others are more important, that sort of thing. So I kind of feel like I was primed to come into medicine, and then in medicine, things got anchored. And it was like, "Yep,
Mm.
this is what you do. This is how it is." And so that's how I fit, because it felt like, okay, I found my space. I found my lot in life. This is how I find my worth.
The way you just said that, right? That it's like, and that's what happens, I feel like, for a lot of us in our careers or in our relationships. It's like these are the burdens we have, and then they get anchored in like adult life or the things that we do as adults.
Which is why when we have the title of the book, it doesn't have to be this way. It was like this whole big, "What? What do you mean?" Like, it was never occurred to me, because I was so anchored and focused to do, this is how it's supposed to be, and this is how what I do.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is totally agree that, and looking back, I can see how experiences I had when I was very young drew me to medicine. And then, like you said, anchored those beliefs, those ways of being in the world. And to the point that it wasn't until I was like in my late 40s that I was even really aware of some of the needs that I had that had been so deeply buried or disowned or dissociated from. But how helpful that is in medicine, helpful in quotes, right? That if I'm not aware of my needs, then I can fully be there for your needs, but really that's not a long-term, solution. That's not going to work. But how the strategies of those parts really helped in medical training, helped me get through it.
Risa, same? Like same or what's similar, what's different?
Yeah, well, what's actually coming, I'm really appreciating um, what you're both sharing. And I'm looking at that perspective of, we wrote this book with like, a guide to physicians' parts. Because there are a lot of similarities, there's certain kinds of parts and abilities um, to that will be welcomed in medicine. It will draw people to medicine, and then that will, be the ones that keep them going and pushing through and all of those things. And so I was thinking about for me how that was the case as well, feeling really responsible. No one else is going to figure this out. I have to. I'm the only one. That's my childhood stuff. And those parts who found a way to feel a little bit more okay in the world by feeling like I'm helping, feeling like I'm, making the world a better place. Realizing I was trying to make the world you know, these parts are trying to make the world a better enough place so there could be room for me in it and little parts. But instead, what happened for me, and I imagine for quite a few other physicians, because I don't think it's unique, is that this burnout, right? This can't go on. It's not sustainable. The efforts can only go so far, at least for some of us, before there's just a system energy crash. And we can't go on the way that we were. And for me, it was a real, existential crisis, kind of like Robin, like, who am I if I'm not a doctor, if I can't do this? What does that what does that mean? It goes really deep.
Yeah, I'm so curious, like, the word brave comes up because 'cause I'm like, how in the world do you like, I'm a doctor, you spend, the time, the energy, the money to go to med school, and then you're in it and you're like, "This is I can't do this." Like, so tell me about that. Like, tell me about those moments when you all were like, "I'm heading in this direction," and then that's, "No, we gotta do something different."
I really got a lot out of being a doctor and being with others and finding and being curious. I think that's what helped me, is to stay curious about what was going on, and I think it made me a different kind of doctor. But also I th- I would do something where I would go and do something for me, and then that would carry me over, and I'd come back and do the job. And then I would go away and do something for me, and then I would come back, and it's like, when I finish this, then it's time for me. So I couldn't do me and others at the same time.
And so then what happened? 30 years you're doing that and you are doing something for you, then them and you, and sort of that was working for a while. And then what happened that was no longer working?
I started caregiving my parents, and it became personal. And so then my personal life, I couldn't separate my personal life from my professional life. And I couldn't, I went to work one day and it was like there was no separation and I couldn't work. Like I just was so in my own personal suffering that I couldn't put it aside to be with others. And that was awful. That was kind of the breaking point.
What helped during that time?
Friends, my family, other people that said, you don't have to keep doing this. There are other ways. There's something else. I knew, yeah, I think just being in connection always helped me, but it wasn't connection with me at that time. It was connection with others for sure.
Okay, okay. And was that kind of your inroad to connection with you?
Yes, more so. I think the writing really helped to connect with what was going on with me and not distract or not I th yeah, like, finding my own self has been really hard, because I tended to find self-energy outside of me.
Elizabeth, what about for you? What happened for you that you were like on this one path and then something shifted and you changed paths?
I feel like there wasn't like a specific moment. In my own therapy, in IFS therapy, I've been getting in touch with parts of me around medical school. And I had this one part that at 15 made the decision I'm going to be a doctor. And it was like, that is it. And I realized how that part kept me going, but also kept other parts from being heard. Not that I knew about parts at that time, but my system kind of worked in ways to help me to continue going. And I mentioned earlier about this pushing part, and I talk about it in the book, that it really helped me keep going too. Like even through, like I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 38. And prior to that, about 15 years of episodes of depression, anxiety, and that was through medical school and residency and after I had my second child particularly. And oh, I just lost my train of thought. Menopause. And so I'm really grateful to that part because it did I believe that part got me through the training. And then there were other parts that helped me by saying, "You shouldn't do a specialty residency, that's not gonna be good for you, and you should look at other options, that you can do in terms of your work that's gonna be." And so I had these parts that were seeking for something that would be a good fit for me, and so I found psychotherapy fairly early on, in my career, and that's been such a good thing for me. But there was a lot of conflict around not being a real doctor. I'm not a real doctor, I'm a therapist. I had parts that believed that and comparing myself to other doctors, and, so there was a lot around that in the early years, but I've worked through a lot of that. Um, but yeah, it's the writing was so good to be able to hear from these parts that hadn't been heard from before. Yeah.
What about you, Risa? Are you a real doctor?
I do feel like I'm a real doctor now, and I certainly didn't before. I really resonate with that.
Mm.
Both imposter syndrome earlier in the medical career, and then at that point of decision making, am I going to keep doing primary care? And a lot of why I went to primary care was it was my part's vision of what a real doctor was, right? Which was like that do everything for everyone all the time and for the most underserved and marginalized. So I worked at a community health center. So that's where I was drawn. Um, but that big theme of, like, I felt like I had to, it didn't feel like there was any choice. And so for me, it got kinda dragged down a path until, one morning on the way to work, I heard, inside of me, "This is killing me." And there was some compassion that came with it, "This is killing me, and I don't have to let it." I can do something else. I can do what I want to do. And that together, I also want to make another plug for being with other physicians because there was a group of female physicians I was a part of at that time who really helped call me back to myself to be able to get to that point of saying, I matter too. Because I was so lost in trying to care for others and really going offline and numbing and really not. even like knowing who I was anymore because of how much I felt wrapped up in helping my patients be better when sometimes they couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And does that feel okay? So, what feels different as being a psychotherapist? How does that feel different? Because I'm thinking, as a therapist, people listening to this that are in the therapists or practitioners of IFS, however that is, they could have some of the same, right? Like a real therapist does this, or like I need to take care of my patients first, or I need to take care of my clients first, or I'm at dinner and I'm concerned about my client. I'm going to go ahead and text them. So, how is it different? Okay, let me ask it this way. What would you say for therapists that are also struggling with some of these same parts that you all were struggling with as physicians?
Yeah, one thing I mean, what's coming to mind for me is that it is a lot of the same things. Because what I noticed in shifting to a psychotherapy practice is a lot of what I had learned and what my parts were already doing even before medical training, they were still doing that when I was a therapist. So I think I had parts that were like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a therapist, it's gonna be different, and I'm gonna feel different, and I'm not gonna have those same kind of" but I did. So it's for me, it's an ongoing process of noticing, what how are my parts coming in here in this particular interaction or with this client or that client and getting trailheads, right, like getting to know
Yeah.
how the parts are coming out, so it feels actually very similar, I think, for me.
I remember saying that a while ago. I don't know who I was talking to, but I said, I think it was like a friend of mine. I said, if I worked at a grocery store, I would be doing the same exact thing. I'd be talking to everybody, want to know what everybody's doing. Like, I'd be nosy as all get out. Like, I would still bring all of my parts in, even if I worked at a grocery store.
I did work at a grocery store, Tammy, and that was completely the case. I felt so responsible for what happened in that freezer and if it was organized and if things were going to expire and if people could find what they need. That's real.
Yeah. I think we take our parts everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there something, my guess is there is something though about medical school, about sort of the decision to be a doctor, the, in medical school that makes all of this even more intense, like the responsibility, the help, the care, the not the shame, the not listening to my fear, ignoring my own needs. Like I'm guessing there's something about being a physician that makes all of that a little bit more intense, enough that you guys are like, let's write a book about this.
Yeah. I'll um, jump in here. We have little sections throughout the book called medical culture, just to kind of point these moments out because I do feel like there are a lot of things in medical culture that really underline and reinforce what Anne Sinko refers to. I'm not sure the original source, but the rules of shame. So a lot of what you just said, like don't talk about it, secrecy, just pretend, keep going, all of those things. And so there's a lot of cultural burdens having to do with hierarchy, having to do with the physician knows best, um, placement of power and knowledge and identity really being tied up in that. There's a lot more I'm sure that can be said. That's a whole other book that's on the list, but
I might jump in here a little bit of what changed for me, maybe, but also I've worked with a lot of therapists and caregivers, and I think what you're saying is we do have a lot of these parts of others first. I also, Elizabeth and I teach mindful self compassion, and so it's so hard to give ourselves compassion. And I see that in many caregivers. I see that in not just in medical caregivers. But what changed for me was being able to treat the person as a person and not having and I could compartmentalize, like, here's the medical and here's the person, because that didn't always translate, trying to see the person behind the illness, or that so that's been on some level better for my system or easier for my system. It's like I can be with this person and someone else can take care of the medical. But in as a primary care physician, I was treating both. and that felt like a bigger burden, and not being able to take care of somebody who, I now see, I mean, if I'd known IFS more so then, it's like, "Oh, this is this part that is doing all of this," and I might, like, I wonder now how that really might have changed things, and anyway, yeah, so I'm just noticing the there was a bit of an ease of, "Okay, here's my focus now," which it always was, focusing on the person, but so it's similar, I would say, because your question was, how is this similar? And I would say it's very similar. I think this book talks about all of our caregiver parts, but the medical culture, that's what makes it a little bit different bringing it in.
Elizabeth, do you want to add anything? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, just I'm just thinking about sort of like where the culture came from in medicine and how some of that, a big part of that is the work that we do and have done, and that it's life or death quite often, or there are major consequences to the decisions that we make. So it makes sense that our parts would take on even more of that sense of responsibility. Yeah.
I have two thoughts. One is I'm wondering if we should do my last question. And then for our Substack users or the people in Substack, I would love your favorite self-care, like your favorite for you, your favorite extreme ultimate self-care that you love. I think that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, is there anything else you want to say for the podcast listeners? Let's do that. Anything else you want to say for the people that are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, there is one thing I would like to say. We just got an email today from someone who is working in a medical school as a wellness counselor and is interested to have us come and bring, some form of IFS to the medical school community, and we're really excited about that. And so if anyone is listening who is already plugged into medical communities, whether it's a medical school, residency program, working with doctors, we would love to hear from you because you're the ones who are in there and on the ground and have the relationships, and we're really hoping to get to partner with you.
Love that. That's so exciting. Anybody else? Anything you want to say?
I think
Elizabeth?
for me, just to say to all the doctors out there, the nurse practitioners, any healthcare workers that are resonating with what we're talking about, that you're not alone, that the kind of the antidote or the healing is going to be in connection. And so we encourage you to reach out, whether it's to your colleagues, your friends, to us. Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, and maybe acknowledge the parts that are afraid to do that, afraid to
Right.
reach out or don't feel that in the same
Absolutely.
way.
100%. Yep. Got lots of those.
Robin?
I'm just really resonating. It's like it's some part. It's like it's a dream on some level. That you're welcome here, and all parts are welcome, and that we're not here to say right or wrong. And really just about creating relationship with yourself, and that your parts are not alone either.
That's beautiful. Okay, so let's change direction completely. If you had to do something different than what you do, not physician, not therapist, and you could do anything, it doesn't matter what talent you have, anything, what would the three of you do differently?
I don't know if it's my age, but I would love to be rocking babies in a nursery and just welcoming them and letting them know, yeah, that it's going to be okay. And maybe knitting some little hats for them too.
Well, there's much debate about this question, just so you know, Tammy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So many parts and, different answers, whether I actually would do if I had to do something different or like what I would want to do. And so the want to do is coming through as an artist, to be a visual artist, a jewelry maker, a potter, throw in novelist and historian.
Love it. I love that. Elizabeth, what about you for you?
Yeah, I had a similar, like so many different parts with different wishes. I think if I hadn't gone into medicine, I imagine myself like being a librarian or a bookstore owner, something to do with books, because that's one of my big loves. Um, but there's a little part of me that's feeling this. Um, there are parts of me that would love to be a professional hockey player. I'm really into the Professional Women's Hockey League that just started a couple years ago. And there's a part of me that says if I were 20 years younger and had started hockey when I was 5, who knows? Maybe I'd be in the league right now. So it's just, yeah, such a wonderful thing.
I cheer you on.
Yep.
Okay, so your book, which is right here, it doesn't have to be this way. Physician's Guide to Radical Self-Care by 3 physicians who've been there, which I think is important, just based on what you all have said. There's something about being with other physicians that know. Like, there's something about that I think feels safe. That's what I'm hearing. But thank you all. Thank you for the book, for your work. I want to hear more, Robin, about your relationship with Derek. But I didn't want to start crying because I felt myself like, oh no, oh no, oh no. That's what I felt when you said that. So thank you all for being here. And so where can everybody find you? I know we're going to put all your but you do have one website for what you do. So we'll put all of your individual websites on the notes. But what's your website for what you all do?
ifsmedicine.ca.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. And then for people that want to continue, go over to the One Inside Substack where we'll continue this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you left a rating, a review, a like, comment, share with your family, your friends. That would mean so much to me. My book is available at your favorite independent bookstore or on Amazon. You can visit my website, tammysallenberger.com, or you can download a free Get to Know a Should part of you. You can follow me at IFSTammy on Instagram and at The One Inside on Facebook and on YouTube. Jeff Schrum co-produces The One Inside, and I am forever grateful for Jeff. Also thankful for Jack Rudin for creating the music, and just thank you for listening. 6 seasons, over 1 million downloads. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you in this community. I'll see you next time.